Your soulmate was rushed into emergency ICU. The first name they whispered was yours. My beloved child, God says, don't scroll away from this message, because something about this story is going to touch a place in your heart you thought had already gone silent. Imagine receiving a phone call that completely changes the way you breathe. A call you never expected. A call telling you that someone you love has been rushed into an emergency ICU. Your mind goes blank. Your heart starts racing. You don't know what to ask first. You don't know what happened. You don't know if they're okay. And then, before you can even process the fear, you hear something that makes everything feel even more personal. Your soulmate, surrounded by doctors, nurses, machines, and uncertainty, whispered a name. Your name. Not the name of the person standing closest to them. Not the name of someone they were recently talking to. Not the name of someone they claimed to have moved on with. Your name was the one that came to their lips when they were at their most vulnerable. And this is where the story becomes deeper than you realize. Because when a person is suddenly confronted with their own mortality, their heart often stops caring about appearances, pride, ego, and everything they used to think mattered. In that moment, they don't think about who they should impress. They think about who they truly need. And somewhere inside your soulmate's heart, that person was you. There is a reason your connection has felt so intense, even during periods of distance and silence. There is a reason you could sometimes feel like something was unfinished between you. There is a reason their name could still trigger emotions inside you even after you told yourself you were ready to move forward. You may have wondered whether they ever think about you anymore. You may have questioned whether the memories mattered to them the way they mattered to you. You may have even convinced yourself that they had completely forgotten you. But this situation revealed something they had been hiding even from themselves. They never truly erased you. They simply learned how to live while carrying your memory quietly inside them. And when everything became uncertain, that memory became the first thing they reached for. Picture the moment. The room is moving quickly. Doctors are asking questions. Nurses are checking monitors. Someone is speaking to them, trying to keep them calm. Their body is exhausted, their mind is overwhelmed, and they are struggling to understand what is happening. Then, in the middle of all that fear, their thoughts travel somewhere familiar. They see your face in their mind. They remember your voice. They remember a conversation between you that seemed ordinary at the time but now feels incredibly important. They remember the way you looked at them. They remember the moments when you made them feel understood. They remember something you said that they never admitted stayed with them. And then they whisper your name. Maybe it was barely audible. Maybe only one person heard it. Maybe the nurse had to ask them what they said. But your name was there. And that moment exposed something they had spent months or even years trying to hide. Your soulmate has been carrying feelings they couldn't fully explain. They may have tried to bury them under work, responsibilities, distractions, relationships, or distance. They may have told themselves that enough time had passed and that they should move on. They may have convinced themselves that you were simply part of their past. But the heart doesn't always follow the instructions of the mind. Sometimes a person can walk away physically while remaining emotionally connected to someone. Sometimes they can stop communicating while still wondering where that person is. Sometimes they can pretend not to care while secretly checking for signs that the other person is okay. And when a crisis suddenly strips away every distraction, the truth rises to the surface. Your soulmate's first instinct was not to think about the past as something finished. Their first instinct was to think about you. That tells you something important about the depth of the emotional imprint you left behind. But there is another part of this story that may surprise you. Before this emergency, your soulmate may already have been going through an emotional struggle that you knew nothing about. They may have been questioning choices they made. They may have been thinking about the people they pushed away. They may have been remembering conversations they wish they could have handled differently. They may have been silently asking themselves whether they made the biggest mistake of their life by allowing fear to separate them from someone who genuinely cared. You may have seen only their silence. You didn't see the internal battle behind it. You didn't see the nights when they wondered whether you still remembered them. You didn't see the moments when they almost reached out but stopped themselves. You didn't see how many times they opened an old message, looked at an old picture, or remembered a moment between you and wondered what would have happened if they had made a different choice. And now, this emergency has forced them to confront those feelings with a level of honesty they were never prepared for before. Because suddenly, tomorrow is not guaranteed. Suddenly, the things they kept postponing feel urgent. Suddenly, the words they thought they had plenty of time to say feel like words that can no longer wait. And one of those words is your name. They may have realized that they don't want to leave this world with you still believing that they didn't care. They may have realized that if they get another chance, they cannot keep hiding behind silence. They cannot keep pretending that their feelings are insignificant. They cannot keep allowing fear to make decisions for them. This is why their emotions are becoming stronger. This is why their heart keeps returning to you. And this is why you may soon notice something changing in the energy surrounding this connection. Now, I want you to understand something very carefully. This message is not asking you to live in fear or assume that something terrible is going to happen. It is not telling you to panic or expect an emergency in your own life. Instead, it is revealing an emotional truth. Sometimes a powerful moment forces a person to recognize what they should have recognized all along. Your Soulmate situation may represent a turning point in the way they see love, life, and you. They are being reminded that time is precious. They are being reminded that some conversations cannot be postponed forever. They are being reminded that love should not always be hidden behind pride. And if they walk away from this experience with a renewed sense of gratitude, one of the first people they may want to reconnect with is you. You may wonder why they would think of you after everything that happened between you. The answer is simple. Because you represented emotional safety to them. You were someone they associated with being understood. Even if the relationship was complicated, even if there were misunderstandings, even if the two of you separated, some part of their heart still remembers how it felt to be seen by you. There is a difference between someone who simply knows your life and someone who knows your heart. Your soulmate may have met many people since you, but very few made them feel the way you did. That is why your memory survived. And now, they are looking at their life differently. They are asking themselves what really matters. They are thinking about the people they love. They are thinking about the conversations they never finished. They are thinking about the apologies they never gave. They are thinking about the feelings they never confessed. And somewhere in the middle of all those thoughts, your name keeps appearing. There may also be someone close to your soulmate who realizes just how important you are. Maybe a family member. Maybe a close friend. Maybe someone who has watched their emotional journey from the beginning. That person may have noticed how your soulmate changes whenever your name comes up. They may have seen the silence. They may have seen the smile. They may have seen the sudden change in their expression. And now, after the emergency, they may finally understand that this connection is not something your soulmate can simply dismiss. Perhaps someone asked, "Who do you want to talk to?" And without hesitation, your soulmate gave your name. Perhaps someone asked, "Who should we call?" And again, your name came up. That moment may have shocked the people around them because they may have assumed your soulmate had moved on. But the heart revealed what the mouth had been hiding for a long time. And this is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Your soulmate may not simply want you to know that they thought of you. They may want to explain why. They may want to tell you what they were feeling in that moment. They may want to tell you that when everything became uncertain, you were the person they wanted beside them. They may want to admit that they were afraid. They may want to admit that they suddenly understood how much you meant to them. They may want to apologize for every time they made you feel unwanted, confused, or unimportant. And they may finally say the sentence you have been waiting to hear, "Should have told you sooner." But before that conversation happens, there is something you need to remember. Do not allow fear to make you abandon your own peace. If this person returns, let their actions speak. Let them show you what they Learned. Let them demonstrate that the experience changed them. You don't have to immediately forget everything that happened. You don't have to rush into forgiveness simply because they suddenly realize your value. You can have compassion while still having boundaries. You can love someone and still require honesty. You can care about what happened to them without sacrificing yourself. That is the strength you have gained through everything you have experienced. And your soulmate is beginning to recognize that strength. They may realize that the person they thought would always be waiting for them has changed. You are no longer begging for attention. You are no longer asking to be chosen. You are no longer trying to convince someone to see your value. And ironically, that is part of what makes them want to come closer now. Because they can feel that you have grown beyond the version of yourself they once knew. They may even be afraid that they waited too long. They may wonder if you still have room for them. They may worry that someone else has already taken the place they once occupied in your heart. And those fears could push them toward finally doing something they should have done a long time ago, reaching out honestly. There is another detail that may become important. After the emergency, your soulmate may become much more emotionally expressive than before. They may start saying things they once kept hidden. They may become more direct. They may stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. They may begin talking about the future differently. They may mention things they want to change. And if you hear from them, pay attention not only to what they say but to the emotional weight behind their words. A person who has experienced a moment that made them question everything can return with a completely different perspective. They may no longer want temporary connections. They may no longer want games. They may no longer want uncertainty. They may want something real, peaceful, and lasting. And when they imagine that kind of future, they keep seeing you. But perhaps the biggest revelation is still ahead. Your soulmates. Emergency may have awakened a truth they had been avoiding for years. They may finally understand that the greatest risk wasn't loving you. The greatest risk was never telling you how deeply they cared. They may have spent so much time protecting themselves from emotional pain that they accidentally created a different kind of pain, the pain of regret. And now they are determined not to repeat that mistake. They want to live differently. They want to love differently. They want to communicate differently. And if they get the opportunity to speak with you again, they may not waste it. So if you have been feeling strangely emotional lately, if memories of your soulmate have suddenly returned, if you have been dreaming about them, thinking about them unexpectedly, or feeling like something unfinished is moving again, don't panic. You don't need to chase a sign. You don't need to force an outcome. Simply stay grounded and protect your heart. Let life reveal what comes next. Because the most powerful part of this story isn't the emergency itself. It is what your soulmate realized because of it. When everything became uncertain, your name was the one they whispered. When they were forced to confront what mattered most, they thought of you. And when they realized that time is never guaranteed, they understood that some feelings cannot remain hidden forever. Maybe this is the beginning of the conversation you thought would never happen. Maybe this is the moment your soulmate finally stops running from their heart. And maybe, after everything they have been through, they are finally ready to tell you the truth they should have told you long ago. And now, my beloved child, there is something you need to understand about what happened after your soulmate whispered your name. That moment did not simply disappear when the room became quiet again. It stayed inside them. Even after the immediate danger began to pass, even after the doctors reassured everyone that they were being monitored, your soulmate could not stop thinking about the name that came out of their mouth. Your name. They may have wondered why they said it so quickly. Why you were the first person their mind searched for. Why, in a moment when everything else became uncertain, their heart went directly toward you. They had spent so much time trying to understand their feelings logically, but that moment gave them an answer their mind could never give them. Their heart already knew. You were not just a memory. You were someone their soul still associated with comfort, safety, and love. And once they understood that, something inside them changed. The fear they had carried for so long began turning into determination. They started thinking about everything they had left unsaid. They remembered the conversations they avoided. They remembered the times they wanted to reach out but allowed pride to stop them. They remembered the moments when you needed reassurance and they gave you silence. Instead, they remembered how many times you probably wondered whether they cared at all. And now they were forced to face the possibility that they might have wasted precious time. That thought became painful. Not because they were afraid of losing a relationship, but because they realized they might have been losing something much more meaningful. They might have been losing the opportunity to tell the person they loved what was truly in their heart. During those quiet hours, your soulmate may have stared at the ceiling and replayed their life in their mind. They thought about the choices that brought them to this point. They thought about the people who entered and left their life. They thought about moments that once seemed important, but suddenly felt meaningless. And then they thought about you. They remembered how you made ordinary moments feel special. They remembered the comfort of talking to you. They remembered the way you could understand their mood without them explaining everything. They remembered your patience. They remembered your kindness. And perhaps most importantly, they remembered that you cared about them even when they weren't easy to love. That realization hit them differently now. Before the emergency, they could tell themselves that there would always be another day, another opportunity, another conversation, another chance to fix things. But after facing a moment of uncertainty, they understood something people often learn too late: tomorrow is never something we can completely control. That realization made them stop postponing the truth. They began asking themselves what they would regret most if they never got the chance to speak to you again. And the answer was not complicated. They would regret never telling you how deeply they cared. They would regret allowing fear to become stronger than love. They would regret making you believe that you meant less to them than you actually did. And they would regret letting you walk away without knowing the truth. This is why your soulmate's energy may feel different now. They are not thinking about you in the same passive way they did before. They are thinking about what they can actually do. They are considering reaching out. They are imagining the first message. They are wondering whether they should call or send a text. They are trying to find the right words. But they know there is no perfect way to begin a conversation that has been delayed for so long. They may type a message, delete it, write another, and delete that one too. They may stare at your name on their phone for several minutes. They may wonder whether you would answer. They may fear rejection. They may fear that you have moved on. They may fear that you won't believe them. But underneath all those fears is one powerful thought: I have to try. And that thought is stronger than it used to be. Your soulmate may also be having conversations with someone close to them about you. Someone may ask why they keep mentioning your name. Someone may notice that you are still emotionally important to them. Perhaps a friend finally says, if you care about this person that much, why don't you just tell them? And your soulmate may not have an answer. Because for years, fear gave them 1,000 excuses. Timing wasn't right. Circumstances were complicated. They were confused. They weren't ready. They thought you deserved someone better. They thought they needed to figure themselves out first. But now, they are beginning to realize that waiting for the perfect moment can become another form of running away. There may never be a perfect moment. There may only be the moment you finally choose courage. And your soulmate is getting closer to that choice. They are beginning to understand that you cannot build a meaningful relationship while constantly protecting yourself from vulnerability. At some point, you have to risk being honest. You have to say, this is how I feel. You have to admit, I was wrong. You have to be willing to hear an answer you may not like. And your soulmate is preparing for that possibility. That is why they may seem emotionally distant one moment and intensely focused the next. Their heart wants to move toward you, while their fear tells them to slow down. But fear is losing its control. Something about the experience they went through has made their priorities clearer. They no longer care as much about looking strong. They care about being honest. They no longer care about pretending they have everything figured out. They care about making sure the people they love know they are loved. And you are one of those people. There is also something your soulmate may want to apologize for. It is not only about leaving, distancing themselves, or failing to communicate. It may be about making you question your own worth. They know that their behavior may have caused you to wonder whether you were enough, whether you were too emotional, whether you asked for too much, whether they simply didn't feel the same way. And now they realize that their inability to communicate was never proof that you were unworthy. It was proof that they were struggling with their own emotions. They may want to tell you, you were never the problem. Those words could mean more to you than they realize. Because there may have been nights when you blamed yourself for the distance. You may have wondered what you did wrong. You may have replayed conversations, looking for the moment when everything changed. But your soulmate is beginning to understand that you were not responsible for their fear. You were not responsible for their hesitation. You were not responsible for the walls they built. And now they may finally be ready to take responsibility for those things themselves. That is growth. That is what makes this situation different from the past. They are not simply missing you. They are beginning to understand what they did to create the separation. And understanding creates the possibility of change. If they come back, they may not come back with the same energy. They may come back softer, more honest, more intentional. They may ask questions instead of making assumptions. They may listen instead of becoming defensive. They may finally tell you what they were too afraid to say before. And you may be surprised by how much they remember. They remember details you thought they forgot. They remember conversations you thought meant nothing. They remember your favorite things. They remember the way you reacted when you were nervous. They remember the little habits you had. They remember the moments when you were there for them without expecting anything in return. These details stayed because you mattered. People don't remember everything about everyone. They remember what touched them. And you touched a part of your soulmate's heart that time could not erase. But there is another reason your soulmate may be thinking about you so intensely. They are beginning to imagine what life would look like if they had chosen you differently. They imagine ordinary mornings, simple conversations, laughing over something stupid, supporting each other through difficult days, building something stable instead of constantly wondering what could have been. And that imagined future feels peaceful to them. Not dramatic. Not chaotic. Peaceful. That is important because your soulmate may have spent years confusing intensity with love. They may have thought love was supposed to be complicated, unpredictable, or painful. But now they are beginning to understand that real love can feel like peace. It can feel like being able to breathe around someone. It can feel like coming home after a difficult day and knowing there is someone who genuinely understands you. And when they think about that kind of connection, they think of you. The emergency may have simply removed the distractions long enough for them to see it clearly. Now, I want you to hear this carefully. Do not let this story make you afraid. The message is about emotional realization, not about predicting a medical event. You do not need to spend your days worrying about your soulmate's safety. Instead, allow the deeper lesson to speak to your heart. Life is fragile. Time is precious. Love should not always be postponed. If there is someone you genuinely care about, honesty matters. And if someone genuinely cares about you, their actions should eventually reflect that truth. You deserve clarity. You deserve consistency. You deserve a connection where you don't have to constantly guess what the other person feels. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that too. And perhaps that is the biggest transformation coming from this experience. They are learning that loving someone secretly is not the same as loving them openly. Thinking about you is not the same as showing up for you. Missing you is not the same as making an effort. They are beginning to understand the difference. And if they truly want another chance, they will have to move beyond feelings and into action. They may start by sending a simple message. They may ask how you are doing. They may bring up an old memory. They may apologize unexpectedly. They may say they have been thinking about you. Don't underestimate a small message from someone who has spent a long time fighting their own emotions. For them, that first step could require enormous courage. But remember, you don't have to decide your entire future from one conversation. Let the truth unfold slowly. Listen. Observe. Feel what you feel. And then decide what is right for you. Because your soulmate's awakening does not cancel your own journey. You have grown too. You have learned how to survive the silence. You have learned how to continue living even when your heart was uncertain. You have learned that love should never require you to abandon yourself. And that is exactly why, if this person returns, the relationship will need to meet a new standard. The old version of the connection cannot simply be repeated. Something must change. Your soulmate knows that. They may be afraid that you won't trust them again. They may worry that you won't believe their words. And honestly, they may have to earn that trust. But that doesn't mean the story is over. It means the next chapter must be built differently. There is one final realization your soulmate may have during this process. They may understand that what they called moving on was never actually moving on. It was simply learning how to function without the person they still loved. They may have continued their life, but emotionally, a door remained open. And when they were suddenly vulnerable, they walked through that door in their mind and found you waiting there. That is why your name came out. That is why their heart chose you, before their mind could think about anything else. And now they cannot unsee that truth. They may try to return to normal life, but something inside them has changed permanently. They know what matters now. They know who they want to talk to. They know which conversation can no longer be postponed. They know that if they are given another chance, they want to use it differently. So, my beloved child, don't chase this moment. Don't force it. Don't become consumed by it. Keep living. Keep healing. Keep becoming stronger. If your soulmate truly has something to say, let them find the courage to say it. If they truly want to return, let them make the effort. And if they truly love you, let their actions prove what their heart has been trying to say. Because sometimes a person doesn't realize the value of a connection until life forces them to slow down long enough to feel it. Your soulmate was forced to slow down. And in that silence, they found the one name their heart could not forget. Yours. Maybe that was not the ending they feared. Maybe it was the beginning of the truth they had been running from all along.